Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the tour and to our online webinar program taking place Monday to Fridays at 11 a.m. I want to say a big thank you to BT for partnering with us on the tour once again. So today we have a session on how you can build resilience and well-being as a leader in a small business with the lovely Gary Parsons, who you may be able to see already. Hi, Gary.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
So today we will be recording. So if you miss anything, don't worry, you will be able to catch up at a later date. Do get involved in the chat and say hello. Let us know where you're from in the UK. We always love to hear. If you've got some questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A at the bottom and we will go through those at the end. Hi, Lydia. Good morning. Oh, it's nice to see everyone coming in. I will hand over to you now, Gary, and I will see you at the end for questions.
Fabulous, thank you very much. Could you just give me a thumbs up? Let me know that you can see my screen okay. And let me see my lovely slides. Oh, perfect, thank you very much. You popped back up onto my screen beautifully there. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And, I've just had to block a little bit of light shining through this window. I don't quite know what's going on. It is November, so I'm a little bit confused. I've just seen somebody said that they're from sunny Kent. I'm in sunny Derbyshire where I am. So hello everybody that is over my way. I am also joining, I'm going to go along to go and see the tour that's in Nottingham tomorrow. So if there's anybody that is nearby that is going on the small business digital, the non-digital tour, should I say, then yeah, drop a little note in the chat. It'll be nice to see you tomorrow if you're in Nottingham as well. So yes, thank you very much. I am really pleased to be with you this morning to talk through a really difficult topic, actually, in so many ways. And I'm going to try and keep it fairly light. But I just want to say, because we're talking about resilience and well-being, I'm going to share with you some of my own story. There is going to be moments where it might be a little bit triggering. Of course, when we talk about mental health and well-being overall, then we do find elements in there that some people do find quite difficult. So I'd not be offended if you need to move away from the call or come back at another point. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Just wanted to just give that little bit of a warning at the very start. You're in safe space. I have been there and I'll explain that to you in a moment. And yes, hopefully we can be in a nice, comfortable environment where you feel able to stay on the call today. So yes, good morning. So my name is Gary Parsons. I'm a leadership mental health advocate. I am an executive business mentor, and I also do quite a few bits of inspirational speaking. I love to just get in front of audiences, so I always struggle with a little bit of a virtual presentation because I like to see people on the other end. So I've got the little chat window open here. Keep chatting away to me. I'll keep reading it all the way through. So please do interact and keep me going from this side of things as well. I'm a people person through and through. So today we're talking about building resilience and well-being as a leader. So it's focused on business owners and leaders, and particularly within small businesses as well. So let me tell you a little bit about me, and it'll start to make sense as to why I'm telling you this story very shortly. So as I say, I have done so many things and been in so many situations. I started a business in 2009. The phrase I often use in 2009, it was the craziest and scariest thing I ever did, but the best thing that I did. And it was, yeah, a really, really difficult time. I'm sure we've had lots of different challenges happen since then over the last 14, 15 years. But certainly one of those things at the time was the challenge of the global recession and all the challenges that was coming with that. I got talked into starting a business with a friend, as I'm sure many of us will relate to, and got pulled into the world of business. I've always wanted to be in business. When I was at school, I was building computers and going to like computer fairs, buying all different parts. I would sell, one of my first sales that I did was selling a computer to my form teacher at school. And I remember the moment when my mum dropped me off at the end of the road near my school, and I hopped out the car all proud, carrying along this big massive tower computer that I took into the school and was selling them to my computers. So I've always been very entrepreneurial from a very young age. So naturally, and I don't know how normal it is for people to feel like this, but certainly I wanted to get into business and see my business dreams come into a reality as I grew older. So like I say, 2009 I started a people consultancy. It came from a background specifically within recruitment, where I'd worked for quite a while for a national and became international provider. And yeah, ultimately, I started to work with my friend and then colleague to start this business. Quite a challenge initially. We grew year on year and start to scale up that business. And I'm really proud to be able to say that we turned it into a multi-award winning, multi-million pound business. And it's still going now, still doing well. And yeah, those moments where and I absolutely encourage anybody to do this, by the way, those moments where you really proudly see your achievements play out in your work environment, in your shop, in your offices, wherever it might be, to then go and apply for awards and see somebody recognize that. For me, that was particularly exciting, and having that kind of trophy cabinet of all the different awards. I've been involved in lots of different programs, the like scale up programs and all things like that. And one of my proudest moments is for the business that I've had is that we worked with and I might add, I don't get any discount on this either. A brand that we worked with was Pirelli, so Pirelli tires, huge business that we worked with. Valent, so I've got a Valent boiler at home, if you know the brand Valent. And then another company called DS Smith, where you might not recognize as much, but they're huge within cardboard and corrugated packaging, and the likes of like Kellogg's and different packaging materials that go on their shelves. So some real big success stories. So why do I tell you about my success? And I always consciously talk about that first. And it's not to be arrogant, but just to set the scene for you. So for me, I talk about that success because we see this glittery, like I just said, the trophy cabinet, all of the awards that we might win, the clients that we win, the names of companies that we work with. There was one particular moment for me that stood out over the last 15 years that I've been in business as a business leader, particularly. And that was the moment where I stood on stage in 2017 and I accepted an award on behalf of the business. It was all around commitment to people development and the growth that we'd had within the business. And I remember stood on that stage. My colleagues stood next to me in tears. We were very emotional. We thought we might win it. Oh, that's why you enter these awards. You know that you're going to win, and you really hope you do, certainly anyway. But there's that moment where you think, could it actually happen to me? And I had my colleagues stood next to me, and I had to stand on stage as managing director at the time, and stood on stage, accepted this award, and had to give a speech. Everybody was in the room clapping, cheering, really, really proud. I had my team sat on a table with me. We brought clients along to the event. But what I didn't tell people is that at the time of me stood on that stage, I was on different dosages of antidepressants. I had a cognitive behavioral therapist that I was working with, and I was stood in stage in that deep depression, crippled with anxiety, accepting an award and smiling in my own way whilst struggling with all of those internal feelings and all the things that were going on in my life. I talk about that because so many people see success and those awards and those wins as happiness, as smiles, as an amazing thing. How could somebody like me possibly be experiencing mental health challenges, depression, anxiety? How could somebody go through what we were going through year on year? I think at one stage we were growing, I think it was something like 225% year on year. How could somebody like me in my situation be experiencing challenges of my own mental health? I guess for me, I'd blended the reality of Gary Parsons, of this business that I'd grown, this challenge that I was going going through. The best way for me to describe it is that I'd lost my identity. I'd become my business. I've absorbed myself, as we do, because we get so passionate and so excited about what we do. Over those 8 years that I'd been in business at that point, I'd absorbed myself into the business, and I was so become, well, I'd ultimately become the business. I hadn't become Gary Parsons as an individual, as a family member, as a friend. I'd forgotten all of those things. I was working 12-hour days, 80-hour weeks, and just purely being me as a business owner. So I talk about that because for me, I didn't realize that the impact of growth, certainly the impact it would have on me as an individual, would be so huge. And you might think this is something that I experience. I didn't really know at the time. I just thought it was me. So what I did is I bit my I bit my lip. I said, I want to really talk about this, but I don't know if I should do. And I remember going back, particularly one moment, I went back into the office and I was talking to my co-director, co-founder of the business. And I said, "Do you know what? Everything that I'm going through, all the challenges that I'm experiencing, why don't we go and tell the world? Because it's really empowering. It's great for our brand as a business to share how personable we are. And look how much we're growing. How amazing would that be?" And the conversation led to the point where we said, actually, it's perhaps not the best thing to do because that stigma, those stereotypes that come with mental health and well-being, we felt at the time, and I could understand the logic of it. My colleague, my co-director particularly felt that the challenge was there to say, if we speak about this, how are we going to grow even further? How are we going to attract investment to be able to continue to grow as a business? And it was a real challenge for us. I don't know if I 100% agreed with him at the time because I was very passionate and very excited and full of the dopamine of the winning all of these awards and the growth that we were having. But I listened to him and I said, okay, look, we've both got to be fully into this to be able to move forward. I'd like to talk about what the world is like, though, and how normal it is to feel like that. Because I wasn't alone. I've looked at the research since that, and I've found research that supports my own experience. And if you're listening to me dealing with the challenges of growing a business, I know one of the particular themes that is coming up at the moment is cash flow. If that's challenges that you're experiencing, then you're not alone. So when I look at this, I see the first thing that jumps out to me, and I use in every conversation that I have, all of the different meetings that I have. And we hear this figure that we see on TV, we hear in different media, where they say 1 in 4 of us experience mental health. It's a real challenge for us because we look at that screen and we say 1 in 4 people, it must be higher than that. I didn't realize that 72%, and the information and the sources at the bottom there, I really encourage you to go and look at the Startup Snapshot report that they did on business leaders and business founders. And they found that 72% of founders experience and struggle with their mental health. I was like, I'm a millennial, so I convert those kind of like 1 in 4 and compare it. And I say, well, that's almost 3 in 4. That's huge. That's 3 times more than the general population. But it shouldn't be a surprise. 54% experience are highly stressed. They experience high stress. That fear of failure being a main stressor for them. 37% of them suffered with anxiety. 36% experience burnout, 13% experience depression, and 10% experience panic attacks. That's just a snapshot of it, no pun intended there. There was so much more there, but I decided to only highlight the first five. It's a real challenge. Just going left to right on here. So 81% of founders hid their stress and fears, including from others, and more than half of them hide their stress from their co-founders, particularly relevant for me. Really interesting, and I'll talk about why this is really interesting in a moment. So only 10% will turn to their investors to talk about their stress. In America, I've started to see this really exciting trend where venture capitalists, investors ultimately into businesses, will say, okay, what we'll do is we'll give you £100,000 or £1,000,000, whatever it might be. And I've started to see the trend now where they don't just give them that much money, but they also give them a coach and a therapist. There's that stereotype that we know that, well, I hear the stereotype that in America, everybody has that therapist. And I love that idea. I absolutely love and encourage that idea because I think we should have one no matter what. But before those events, before those challenges start to become reality, and even during that, I absolutely think we need to. So to be able to see that investors are now, a very small element of them, are investing in companies going forwards, and they are giving them money, but giving them that mental health support is phenomenal. So it really excites me. But what does challenge me and worry me a little bit is only that 10% of those actually will turn to those investors. And then only 23% of founders, of leaders, will go to a psychologist or a coach to get support. So quite challenging. And thank you, Lydia. I've just seen that. When I looked at it, when I saw those stats, I thought, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable with this. I absolutely do feel a little bit more like there are other people around me that are going through what I'm going through. And whilst I felt like there was a stigma, and I think to an element there is, whilst that stigma is there, actually, when you start talking about mental health and well-being with other business owners and other business leaders, what you realize very quickly is it is normal. The challenges that we face are normal. Somebody in the street can experience mental health the same way as a business owner. You could cross the road. I had an analogy of an image of skipping across the road to somebody. You could cross the road to somebody else, and they could be experiencing it, but it's showing on the statistics that we may experience it more as a business owner or business leader. So for me, 2024 was a huge turning point. I decided that I would step away from the business that I'd grown, that I co-founded and grew into this huge success, and I built a brand for myself. But I made a conscious decision to step away from that business. And so I'd moved my way up, by the way. I'd gone from managing director up to CEO, so I'd gone into more of a strategic position. Our sales and marketing director moved into a managing director position, and I still now am a non-executive director in that business. But what I did do is I rebranded myself. I'm looking around my room to show you something. All of the branding that we had as a business was blue. So I went yellow, yellow, black, completely different colors from that business. I changed my LinkedIn profile so people started to think I'd sold the business because I took my brand away, my personal brand away from that business as much as I possibly could do. And I went out to the world and I started to tell them my story. I started to tell them all about the success that we'd had. I reminded them of it within my network. And I told them about the challenges that I had faced as a business owner, as a growth business, as somebody that had scaled up, like I say, 225% year on year at times. The feedback I had was phenomenal. I remember talking to one person, and he invests in businesses. And he said to me, "Do you know what, Gary? I know you stepped away from your business, but if you'd approached me for investment whilst you were still in the business and told me this story, then actually I probably would have invested in it more, knowing what I now know, opposed to you not being in that business, because I get it. You're being vulnerable. You're showing authenticity. You've gone through something that all of us can go through in our lives. It doesn't discriminate. Many of us will experience these challenges, whether it's through a death of a loved one, coaching somebody who sadly lost their husband last year, or mentoring them, should I say. It could be ourselves that become ill. It could be so many different reasons. It could just be something that we are experiencing a difficult period. It happens. Normal things happen to normal people. I decided that I'd go out to the world and I would tell the world about what I went through when I became a mental health advocate, a mental health and wellbeing advocate within leadership. I became a public speaker. I joined the Professional Speaking Association, and I started to deliver keynotes for companies, rooms full of heads of, directors of, to tell them how they could lift their mask and they could talk about themselves, the challenges that they go through with their team. And do you know what they did? It was so exciting when I did that, the last one that I ran. I became a business mentor. So I started working with businesses because I've had coaches and I've had mentors help me grow my business. But I realized that when we start chasing growth, we start to lose ourselves and we start to become absorbed into it. And I consciously now talk about a life-work balance. And please take this, please take this phrase elsewhere and start talking to other people about it. Start talking about life-work balance. Let's get rid of this phrase, work-life balance. Life should come first. And it absolutely is about you and your life. And I also started to launch a podcast. And I realized that to be able to normalize conversations around mental health and well-being, it wasn't just my story and my experience I needed to talk about. I needed to bring people in. I needed to find that other 71% of people to go and, that's my really bad maths, 71% of people to go out and talk and say, look, this is something normal that we experience. I have just got a small video. It's 1.5 minutes that I just want to share with you. Could you do me a huge favor and just let me know that you can hear this audio, because I know challenges with Zoom are there. If not, I will send you the link. I will do something so you've got it as well. I'm sure if you just search for this on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. Can everybody hear this okay?
Gary, I don't think we can hear it. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
Oh no,
Let's.
they're saying they can hear. Maybe it's just me. Oh no.
You can hear me. You can't hear the video.
I hear you, but not the clip exactly.
Do you know, these are the wonders of Zoom. And every time I use a different software, that's such a shame. Okay, well, you're going to have to now go and find the video on YouTube, unless anyone can tell me how to share PowerPoint audio via Zoom. I threw it in yesterday because I was so excited to be able to tell you that, share computer sound. Here we go. I've just learned something new. Can you hear this now?
Probably truly honest.
Right. Let's put this back. And do you know, this is me just being vulnerable and saying I've never done this before on Zoom. So let's go with this.
Why Leaders in Disguise?
Leaders in Disguise is the podcast that breaks the silence around leadership mental health.
For those 3 months, I barely went out. I just hid away.
Everyone wants to portray the image that everything's rosy. No one walks into a networking room probably truly honest.
I'm Gary Parsons, and I know firsthand the challenges that come with leading whilst battling mental and physical health. I was literally crying in the mirror. Now, I'm sitting down with real leaders who are sharing their untold stories, the highs.
And yeah, I got the letter that said, congratulations, you are the new finance director.
The lows.
Came home and I just couldn't adjust, and 2 days later I was in hospital having my stomach pumped.
And the truths behind the mask.
You know, we've seen you withdrawn, we've seen you not happy, we've seen you be more stressed. And
Thinking real dark thoughts, and then in walks my little daughter. Why sad? I've just burst into tears.
Together, we're breaking the stigma and normalising conversations that matter, because true leadership starts with being real.
I just knew there was something wrong with me.
Join us for honest insights. What one thing as a small business owner do we need to be focusing on right now? Powerful stories and the conversations leaders aren't having, but should.
Thank you, everyone. I've got to say, a good friend of mine, Darren, I'm just going to turn my computer audio off now in case you start getting pings. A really good friend, Darren, has been supporting me on this journey. He's done all my videography, has been supporting me emotionally, and he actually produces all of our videos for the podcast. And I say podcast, it feels like a TV show. And yeah, ultimately, he put that together to celebrate. So it was our 6-month anniversary yesterday on the 13th. We launched it for mental health and mental health awareness week in May, and it's just been phenomenal just to have all those different people speak. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope you managed to hear that and enjoy it. If you just search for Leaders in Disguise on YouTube, it is on there now. It went live yesterday. So yeah, that was all about me. I'm going to stop talking about me for a moment, but I just wanted to make sure that I can show you what it's like to be authentic and to be vulnerable as well. And I just wanted to, for a moment, talk about some of the themes that are coming out. And one of those biggest themes that are coming out on the sessions, on the YouTube videos, on the podcasts that we run, and that is around burnout. And burnout seems to be the biggest thing that is coming up time and time again. And I just wanted to make sure that you can spot these before we start talking about some practical strategies to help you manage your resilience and sustain your well-being. And they are looking for these signs. So I experience these as well. So constant fatigue. So you might feel physically or mentally drained even after a rest due to prolonged stress. Reduced productivity. So struggling to concentrate, feeling less motivated, and noticing a decline in work quality and efficiency efficiency are often indicators of burnout as well for you. Physical symptoms, so leaders may experience unexplained headaches, muscle tension, stomach issues, frequent illness due to stress. These are all I'm not going to read every single one out on here, but these are all different things that I started to experience. Now, of course, they could be related to many other different things, but I would just start, if I was you, just to spot these signs and do something about it. There are so many people that ignore these signs, and I did. And I'm not qualified. I'm certainly not a doctor or any qualified in burnout whatsoever. But everything I read tells me that burnout can take a very long time to overcome. It can take years, in fact. So spotting these early signs of burnout are really important, really, really important to keep an eye on. So practical strategies. Look at my lovely picture on there. I don't know who does my branding, but I wince every time I see my picture on the screen. I need to get some new photos done. So I'd like to just give you, where are we now? Crikey, time is flying when you're having fun. And I am so far, so thank you. I'm going to give you some practical strategies around what you can do to build resilience and kind of master these signs and spot different things to support your own well-being. So let's see how many we can get through. I might have to skip through a couple. So first one, mastering boundaries, a hugely important topic. And this is, so all the things that I talk about are about protecting your own mental health and well-being as a leader. So boundaries are really, really crucial. It's something that I learned the hard way. So boundaries are crucial for separating work and personal life, and it allows you to recharge without guilt. It's that going on that holiday, it's having a day off, it's going to see your children in that school play at Christmas. I haven't got any children, but I know that Uncle Gary might be going to one at some point soon. So yeah, it's going to go and get involved in those different things that help us and support us here, make us feel good about ourselves. Hugely, hugely important that we do that. As I've just said, you need to start thinking about spotting those signs as well. So identifying those early signs. So fatigue, can't even speak now, irritability, losing your words like that can be a sign as well, might I add. Constant work thoughts are indicators that boundaries are needed. So if you're going to sleep at night or you're struggling to go to sleep tonight because you've got so much going on, start to consider your boundaries. Really interesting from a boundaries point of view are the physical and emotional boundaries as well. So just trying to get that life separation that I spoke about a few minutes back, making sure that you aren't working so much at home. Find if you've got somewhere that you work at home particularly, go and make sure it's got a door on it. If you can do, it's an area that you close down. Don't sit on a couch and work. Try and find somewhere that you call your workspace where you can close a door or I don't know, put things away in the cupboard out of the way whatsoever, as much as you possibly can do. And then push back. So many of us that have team members might text us in an evening. And I don't mean send them a nasty message back and say, you shouldn't be messaging me at 9 o'clock at night because I'm not working. But just start to just think about how you can find some healthy boundaries, how you can role model those healthy boundaries with those team members as well. If you're replying at 9 o'clock at night, then they're probably going to send you a message at 9 o'clock at night as well. So I would definitely think about how you can set some boundaries within your work of just separating that life-work balance that we spoke about. Work for less stress. So looking at prioritizing your focuses. So this is all around being pulled from one direction to the other and all that stress that is going on in a business and the many different hats that we have to wear as business owners. I definitely would encourage you to just think about where your focus and your time should be. I'm going to talk about one particular thing on here, and that is around delegation. Okay, it's great to identify what you should be prioritizing on, but should you be doing everything? And when it is our own business, particularly our own baby that we started, that we're so passionate about, how do we possibly pass that to another team member or somebody that we have never done it before? I think it's all about, it says delegate effectively on there, but it's giving them those less important, less urgent tasks and start to build up their knowledge, and certainly something that you should be working through, and reducing that micromanagement as well. Let them go away, let them do that stuff, and don't be as precious as you possibly could be on tasks like that. I'm racing through these because I get so excited about all the different stuff that I went through. The power of rest. I was listening to Radio 2 this morning, and the Children in Need fundraising that they're doing, and I could hear that the power of rest to Paddy going around the country of riding a bike, and I really feel for him to be able to do that. And in the world of, I was reading recently about the world of Olympics and sports, they do something called forced rest. I don't know if anyone's heard of that before. A really, really interesting article I was reading. And it's that concept of going, you will have a day off. You will have some time out. You will have a weekend. I now, on a Wednesday every week, I have a day where I go and I have a horse that I loan. So I go out horse riding. I call it a Wellbeing Wednesday. And I go out and go and see the horse. I clean him and make him all look lovely, even though the stables do that for me anyway. I go and do that because I love the connection that I have. And I take him out and we go to the woods, and it's only sort of 45 minutes out of our day. And I take him out, and it's just beautiful to be in nature and that connectiveness with him and Merlin, his name is, by the way. And we just love going out and just getting stuck into that switching off. And the temptation is there that creeps in to be able to answer the odd text message or deal with the email that we should do. And I know doesn't have that privilege to be able to switch off for a whole day. But if you could just switch off for an hour or two and go and do something that you love and have that dedicated well-being time. I tried to do yoga. I'm struggling with it, I've got to be honest with you. But yeah, doing things like that where we can just switch off and just be wholly in your own space and enjoy your being in that moment where you don't think about anything else and being in that moment. So important. And developing systems. So I went on an amazing webinar a couple of days ago with a person that spoke about automation and automating different. By the way, I'm loving all of these series of webinars. And they haven't paid me to say that whatsoever. I went on one a couple of days ago, and it was all about that automation and seeing where you can make things run smoother. Because why do something yourself when a system, AI, or an automated piece of software can just do it for you? And yeah, most importantly on there, I guess, is that overcoming that guilt about rest as well. It's not a luxury. It absolutely is a necessity. You can only sustain what you're doing and avoid those burnout signs if you are taking that rest, if you are forcing yourself to have rest as well. So potentially the most powerful slide on this screen. Financial well-being. I spoke about it earlier, challenge that I'm facing at the moment with lots of my different mentees that I'm working with. So have a look at creating that cash flow buffer. Easier said than done. I'm sure that's the phrase that's coming out of your mouth now. But just during those difficult, unexpected periods, those slower periods, looking at how you can build those reserves, getting a little bit better, and just holding yourself a bit more accountable to sit down with your account software and just understand your account software a little bit more of your accountant or your bookkeeper, and putting that money to one side so you don't see it, putting it in a separate bank account, even if it's a small amount of money, putting it there to be able to create this cash buffer for when that bill comes in at the end of that quarter, or that bill comes in at the end of the year, or those difficult periods that come up. Absolutely something that you should be looking at doing and not shying away from. I'm hoping the person that I do mentor is on this call today. I did mention it to her to come along. She'll know this is for her entirely. Streamlining financial management, so looking at automated systems as well. Absolutely automation again. And just mentally prepare yourself for those slower months. Understand that they will come along and start to think about changing that mindset for you as well. I said the last one was the most important one. I feel like this has been, for me this year since April, so important. So this is all about, we sit and just get on with our lives, and our husbands, wives, partners, family don't appreciate what it's like to run a business. Go and network with people. Go and talk to other people within your professions. They do a great high street networking where I am. I know there's lots of different networking groups. I know Small Business Britain do so many different things as well. I'm part of the Lilac Review, so that's great to be able to talk to people that experience challenges in their own way. That is so phenomenally great to be part of. But just listen. And I think what we start to do, particularly with like imposter syndrome, is we start to hear other people experience doubt, they experience challenges, and we starts to just normalize those conversations. And we're not all sat there doom and gloom and just talking about the horrible moments of running a business, but actually we talk about the successes and we share ideas, but we also just give ourselves this reality, this authentic life of running a business as well. Last one on here, he says, perfectly timed, slightly over, developing confidence, managing that self-doubt, embracing that success. I just mentioned about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is so focused on self-doubt. Please go and look at the awards, look at the success, look at if you've started a business, you've already achieved something by starting a business. I genuinely believe that. Like I say, I started a business in 2009. The craziest, best thing I ever did. Look at the achievements that you've had, whether it's trophy cabinets, whether it's that client that you've just made smile, walk through the door. It doesn't have to be financial. Just look at those achievements, write them down, put them on your fridge at work, put them in a frame, shout about those testimonials that you've had for clients, live and breathe your successes and your achievements. Building that long-term confidence as well. I've just got that on the bottom there, just to mention briefly, that feedback that you have, reflect on those achievements and genuinely do look at those testimonials or reviews that you get for your business. I lied, that wasn't my last slide, but I'm just going to flick through this because I just realized what time it was. But yeah, most importantly, purposeful growth at a sustainable pace. Grow your business at a pace that is right for you. If your business is growing and people are telling you that you need to achieve £2 million, £3 million, £4 million, look at where you are in it. Is it right for you as a business? Can you do this sustainably? And does it align to your purpose? Is it manageable? Is it going to potentially lead to burnout? Do you have the structure in place to be able to achieve that? There's that phrase, isn't there, around profit is sanity and turnover is vanity. Don't get caught up in the vanity. Focus on what is important for you, that your values align, that you want to take that business where you want to go. Remember, the business that you have is a business that you want to grow yourself, and it's for you that you started it in the first place. And that is kind of it. So thank you. I know we'll jump into Q&A in a moment. And like that, you've appeared on my screen. But just very quickly, I was just going to say, please go and join the movement of Leaders in Disguise. The stories that people tell on that are just phenomenal, and it is purely not for profit. That project, it costs me lots of money. We don't have any sponsors on it. It just runs. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
Marvelous. Sounds like a real passion project there. And thank you so much, Gary. I'm sure I'm saying this on behalf of everyone. That was such an inspiring session. And I absolutely love your Wellbeing Wednesdays. I think everybody needs a horse to go and visit on Wednesday afternoons to have some forced rest. So thank you for sharing that with us.
That's all right. I was just thinking he's called Merlin as well. It's almost like that tedious link of him being magical and changing my life. So yeah, he's a big grumpy thing as well. So, but we'll talk about that another day.
Bless you. Well, I will dive into questions. So one question, which is about kind of taking rest. What if you feel that you're too busy to take time or, take some time to rest? How can you kind of break through that and then also not feel guilty when you're maybe having your lovely Wednesday afternoon?
There's part of it is to try and, what I've done personally, I can only share my own experience, is just, you mentioned that word guilt there. Actually, what happens if you don't take time out and so I think it's a huge mindset thing. So if you don't take time out, then you are you're risking that business. If you're relying on that revenue of that business, if you don't take time out, then that could be a problem. If the customers that rely on you, etc. But I think this is why we call it forced rest. And I'm going to do some more research on this from a sports athletics. I think it was the Olympics that I read it as a context. Force yourself to rest, even if it's an hour. Find those habits. I was talking to a guy. I started to work with a guy on Tuesday, and he experienced a really difficult time. And we tend to find rest when in the face of adversity, when we've experienced those challenges. Please try and do it before. Try to find that rest. Try to just say to yourself, look, things that you look forward to. Maybe that's the answer in short. If it's Merlin that you go and see, go and pay for something that you have to go and do and you feel guilty about not going to do it. I have to go and see him every week, albeit I've not seen him this week, I've got to say, but I have to go and see him every week. For me, that's hugely important for me. And also no one gets to see him on a Wednesday if I don't go. But it might be that you need to switch off at 6 o'clock and you close your laptop, because it's recognize the things that are important, like family time, seeing your other half, going and spending time, book things into your calendar to go and see a friend. Find ways to just kind of push it in your face and say, tough, whether you like it or not, you've got to finish at 6 o'clock today.
Yeah. I think that's such a good idea, popping it in your calendar, because then like it's not a task, it's not to do. However, it's like, right, I've committed to this. Like I've committed to my, my job in the day. I've now committed to seeing my friend. Therefore, I've got to just, go off and do it. So I think that's a really good piece of advice.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many. I've got a really good friend who, if you speak to her, she tells you that she's got a slot available in January at the moment. She's absolutely all over it in that sense. And that, maybe that's a bit over the top, but certainly if there's things that you do and you know that helps you as an individual, and I think it's all about what you connect with, what makes you feel good here. And sometimes work can feel like that, but what I will say is, for me, my therapist talked about that kind of that three-legged kind of milking maid stool. They use that a lot in CBT, and he said to me, like, all the things that you connect with, all the things that you enjoy, all the things that you're achieving at work. When you have a bad week at work, what can you fall back onto? And I realised that to take that analogy even further, those legs on that milking maid stool were really, really thin and they could break very easily. So what I started to do is start to add other things in there, because if I'd had a bad week at work, I'd have a lovely time horse riding, or I'd have a nice time seeing my friends, or learning and doing a different hobby. And just trying to find those stabilizers is a really important thing to look at.
Definitely. And it's, it's never too late to pick up a new hobby. It can be anything. Like, anyway.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, if there's enough time there for people to pop into chat, if that's okay? Is, I said 72% of people experience mental health challenges as business owners. I saw somebody earlier said that they were quite shocked but not surprised. Is that a statistic that you all were shocked by when you saw that? That 72% versus that 1 in 4 people experience it? Because as a business owner, as a business leader, I genuinely was shocked myself. Don't know if anyone else felt that is expected, the challenges that we go through. Got you all typing away now.
It's a funny thing, because nobody wants to, on the outside, everybody wants to put on, I'm doing well, I'm good. It might just be just you. So there isn't another person to kind of confide in. So yeah, it did shock me, that statistic, actually.
I think, like you say, I spoke to a guy who was phenomenal, a guy called Chris, and he started a business whilst he was in an abusive relationship. And, we don't talk about men that experience abuse within a relationship, but he's a phenomenal guy. And he's grown that business to £500,000 that he's generated in that business. And like I said, in adversity, people do it, but he openly said, I don't go into networking rooms and talk about what I went through. That perhaps it's not relevant, but he feels like he's got to try and hide and keep that there. And through just coming onto a podcast and talking for an hour about it, he has had so much amazing feedback. And one of the charities that support survivors and victims of male domestic abuse has really opened him up even more and helped other people. So I do think just having those conversations and just being real and authentic really, really does make a difference. Thank you, Sajad. That's oh yes, Sabrina. I'm reading them all really fastly on the screen here. Yes, it did shock you. It's yeah, thank you, Chantal. There's so much experience, and I try not to talk about it in a doom and gloom way, because it's that, it's running the business, so it's horrible and crazy, but it is just as normal as anything else. But you will experience challenges, I guess. Is that, would you say?
And often, like, I think if you if you think about it in the physical sense, for instance, if you had tonsillitis or something and you were bedbound, you would take a day off work. But with mental health, because maybe it's them, sometimes there are more physical things that present themselves, but sometimes you might feel like it's in your brain, so you don't take that time off. but it's just as, sometimes you definitely need to take that break.
Yeah, absolutely. I had one, and this is the thing, we talk about employee mental health so much and their well-being, but we don't talk about the leaders, the C-suite, the directors of those new managers that have gone into positions. I spoke to somebody, God, crikey, it was probably last month now, and they told me about a story where they were in the car in tears because of something that was happening in their own personal life. And then they walked through they sucked it all back in, as we say, got out the car, walked through the business and went, "Morning, everybody, how are you?" And felt like they had to put a mask on for that team because they didn't want to show that something bad was happening in their life, which I absolutely get. I think there's a difference between sharing things that are personal and public, and I think you are entitled to that privacy. But the person that you just said good morning to on the front desk on the office, or whoever it might be, your co-directors, your co-founders, they experience it as well. So when they're going through bad times, what you're doing is you're role modeling bad behaviors because they don't, and I always use a phrase of there's always a reason but never an excuse. And what we don't want people to do is say, "Oh, I'm not coming in today because I've had this happen." I wouldn't want anybody to excuse me, but I'd want them to thoroughly understand the reason why I might be struggling or I might be experiencing something. And if your employees can say, "Oh, Gary's had a really bad time, um, you know, let's just make sure he's okay and we'll work through it." And the day that it happens to them, they can do the same. Like the connection and trust and relationship it builds with your employees is so much more. I'm a little bit passionate about this, can you tell?
Absolutely.
I've only spent 7 months talking about this very openly, and every day I can be as passionate as this talking about it.
Well, you've clearly found what you're meant to be doing. I think that's such a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. I guessed it. I just noticed this. I would have guessed it was 50%, not 73%. Yeah, I'd probably say it's 50-50 as well. But then, I always say it tends to be higher when we see that 1 in 4 people experience mental health. I always go, "Oh, crikey, only 1 in 4. It must be higher than that." And I see 72%, and I go, "It's probably more like 90." But yeah, and by the way, money doesn't buy happiness. I had a multi-millionaire. He's got hundreds of millions in his bank account. And he approached me and said, "How would you like a grumpy old man who's made a lot of money to come and talk about a really difficult time in his life?" And he sold a business and sadly tried to take his own life. And that was the biggest shock for me. And I asked him, "Does money buy happiness?" And he went, "No, absolutely doesn't."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I have every belief that if he's working with you, I'm sure things are on the up.
He's fabulous. He's so good and a massive supporter as well. So yeah, huge supporter.
Fabulous. Well, if anyone's got any last minute questions, do pop them in the chat. If not, somebody's put a lovely quote in there.
Yeah,
Everybody needs to be rich and famous, so they learn it is not the answer to happiness. I love that quote. Jim Carrey, amazing.
And you see Jim Carrey as this big, smiley, comedic person as well, don't you? So yeah, thank you, Julia. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna copy and paste them and read them all back afterwards because you can't really keep an eye on a screen, and it's great just to see everybody. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Oh, well, thank you so much, Gary, for taking the time. And thank you to everyone attending. We will be back here tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. So if you'd like to join our next webinar, please do. In the meantime, have a lovely rest of the day and take care.
Thank you, everyone.